Hey, good morning. It's the Dev Talk Show on March 7th of 2024. Here with my co-host Rich Ross. How you doing, Rich?
Good morning, Chris. Doing well. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. It's a little sunnier and
Yeah, just no rain.
yeah, I guess we had a little bit of rain and well, I say I guess, and that's because I was cooped up inside all day yesterday. But when I did actually walk outside, I said, "Oh, look, rain." So, a little bit of rain in our area,
hmm
and you were on yesterday working with components in Blazor.
I I was working on them. I did not run a stream though. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to, but there was
Okay.
too much going on around here to effectively do that. But I did spend the time that we would have been streaming, kind of getting some things in place and working on getting our application up to where it should be. So that was all
Yeah.
some good stuff.
That's how busy my morning was. I know you were saying you were going to try to get on and finish off what we started the day before,
Yep.
um, where we were back in Blazor trying to work with component state, which, you get started with Blazor, you start building components, and then you start composing components. And then the question comes up, hold on a second, something that happened in this component, how do I let the other components know? And it seems like there's a variety of techniques. Some of them, um, I don't want to say this the wrong way to mislead people, but they're more deeply embedded in the framework, like say a cascading value or a cascading parameter. That's
hmm
part of the framework. And then there's other techniques such as you know, um, expose an event and handle it in another component. That's just .NET.
Right.
And then, or what if you create a service that is responsible for shuttling messages around or state around, however you want to do it, or maybe persisting it in your own custom store? That's just writing a service. So it's interesting that we have these different levels of support, things right in the framework, and then maybe take a step back. And it'll be nice to see where you've gotten because you had a very interesting concept of a component that understands its own little domain space of building an overall prompt that then gets picked up by a component that says, I'm putting together the prompt to then
Yeah.
later go to DALL-E and semantic kernel. So,
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's we can kind of catch things up on where we are. Let's see. I can share my screen, and as I like to do, and we didn't do last time because we kind of get into it real quick. But
yeah.
uh,
Okay.
let's share. Boom. And then if you want to rearrange,
Yeah, it looks
yes,
like
because you
that.
know where all
Whoop,
the
there we
borders
go.
go. Okay. Love it. Um, yeah. So we're going to talk about this app that I'm building, and it's you know, project names are always better than real names. So this one's called Hello Dolly, and the reason is because it's using one of the AI services called DALL-E, which is it takes text and creates an image. And what we're going to do is talk to various AI services, DALL-E being one of them, but some of the OpenAI services as well, to a first off get our questions, second off get our uh, in addition once we get our questions, and then when we have our answers to the questions, be able to send those answers over to OpenAI and say, okay, generate a prompt that will create an image based off of these characteristics of an image. So that's the kind of the three-step plan, right? So we'll use AI to get the questions, AI to take the answers and generate a prompt, and then we'll take that prompt and pass that over to DALL-E and be able to get an image out of it. So that's what this app is that we're putting together. What I'm showing here is because over, as you probably heard as we went through that description, is there's a good amount of generative AI or open AI. If we think about a product involved in what we're doing there, and this got on our radar yesterday as a new course that they launched last week. Sounds like they're launching it again, but basically it's
Yes.
a free course to learn generative AI, which is really awesome that this kind of service is available and available especially for free. So,
Yeah, that's right. And we've talked about it on the show. I think last week or maybe the week before, they definitely were moving towards a version 2 of it, and it's all on GitHub.
Yep.
And I think that basically it links out to something deployed on GitHub pages that drives you through it. And it's actually something that we've been talking about driving through, at least taking some inspiration from it to show different features. So
Yeah. Yeah. And we did a ChatGPT session. Gosh, it was almost 9 months ago, right? When we did the build the app that took the created that 3D space for us inside of
yeah,
ChatGPT,
right.
which was a lot of fun. We've come a long way since then, but it's time to kind of come back, and this app is really kind of helping us go back and start to look at AI as you can do inside of your application. So that's what we're going to be doing here over the next few weeks, or we'll see how long it takes. Hopefully it shouldn't take longer than this week and next week. But then if you're interested in that, this is a great place to go ahead and get started.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
cool. Let's see. So I've got my project here. It is I'm running inside of branch up to date. Okay, so I'm running inside of something called DevBox. So that's essentially a development machine hosted in Azure that I've created, and we'll probably do a show where we talk a little bit deeper about that. But essentially, kind of recreating the one that I had up there and bringing down some of the pieces. So my application exists. I can look at. I know I want to switch to .NET 8 as the branch. Awesome. And cool. And then from here, we'll just do this one. And we'll launch Studio, and I'm launching Studio for the first time on this machine, so that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, and this, like you said, on this dev box, right? So
Yeah.
just while you're waiting for that to pop up, is that something you? I know we're not going to look at DevBox today, but is that something that you check a box and you say, "Hey, I want these products"?
It's a little it's a little different than that. Right now,
Okay.
the way the really kind of briefly while this loads up, the way the images roll is you can create a dev box that you basically create a pool of dev boxes, right? So, and that's based off of some image information, as it were. So something like what's the type of virtual machine that essentially we were creating here? So how many cores does it have? 8, 16, or 32? How much RAM does it have? And I believe that's 32, 64, and possibly 128. Don't hold me to the numbers. But essentially, you've got different scales. And there are 3 scales that we can kind of choose from. And then from the VM sizes, you need an image on there. And those images come in either Windows 11 or Windows 10, at least right now is the time we're taping this. And within those OS flavors, there's an enterprise version of Visual Studio 2022 or 2019. So you've got 2 options. And then a pro version of Visual Studio 2022 or 2019. So that's 4 images right there. And then I guess they also have community, because there's 6 different images you can click from. So again, 2022, 2019. So you've got some options in how you create your base image. Once that base image is there, then there's actually a configuration file that you can create that can call out to package managers like Chocolatey or Winget and start to bring things into your system here. So like VS Code was not mentioned as we went through the list of things, but here it is sitting on my desktop because I have that in my profile file. You can also do things like if we look here, that is, so yeah, so if we look here, we've got a repos folder, and it's got my project in here that I downloaded. That was also one of the things that I could add in the configuration file. So it's just a JSON document, and you can bring in whichever, bits of things that you want to do to augment what's in there. And then it takes about, once you do that and kick it off, it takes anywhere between like 20 and 25 and 60 some minutes to build, and then you're able to log in and start configuring it the rest of the way, like I'm going to be doing here by signing into my my Visual Studio instance.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we switched back to our talking
Thank
head
you.
view for just a moment. For those wondering in the chat. And again, if you're joining us live, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we got
Always
quite a few people
happy,
live here.
always happy to hear from folks. But at the same time, we there's a lot of folks who just want to enjoy watching. So there's certainly not trying to apply any pressure to reach out. But any questions, any comments? Maybe you've used DevBox, maybe you've used Dolly. It's always cool to get advice in the. I'll never forget the episode where we spent over an hour, and it was just changing we had implemented some stuff in Windows and then tried to use it over in Linux and forgot to switch the backslashes to the other slash, and there was a viewer in chat who was telling us, and it was before like the multi-monitor setup now, so it was hidden, the chat somebody was saying.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. All right, do you think you're past that now?
I am. We're good.
Okay, so let me it's not a one button operation, but there we are. So Visual Studio 17.9.
Sliding everything back and forth there. Yes. So it's loading my projects. It might complain that, although maybe not. I know when we opened yeah. So project targeting a version of .NET which is not installed. That's fine. I'm going to actually, for this one, let's I can unload it. This way I don't have to worry about it trying to build it. And then, right, 8 will now be the default. So let's keep that. Okay. So in this project here, just to kind of go through what we did, since you were last here, we've got our components, which has our pages in it. We have our home page. And on our home page, we'll do a build while this is happening. We essentially have a collection of questions, and then from those questions, we are getting bringing in those responses. Give that. Looks like it all succeeded. Cool. So down in here, we've got we actually added a responses object, and then we added this. Our responses changed, and that's because we're pointing to under services. There we go. Response state. We created this state class, and the state class has the responses in it, and then an action for on response changed. We wire up our responses so they're not null, and then something we didn't do last time that I did this time around was basically say, okay, we're going to add or update the response, because someone could change their mind and switch which response they want for the question. So we've got a question name and then a response, and then we're looking to see if that dictionary contains that question name, and if it does, let's overwrite that response. If not, we're going to add it and put the response there. Once that's done, we call the on response changed in case anybody's listening for what's going on there in that state. So that's how we're handling it. It's all happening inside of the application. We're not saving out to or persisting state to a blob store or to a data table or to Redis cache or something like that. Because quite honestly, if we lose state on this, it'll just refresh the page and reload, and the person will go through the process of answering the questions again. So it's not like it's not like a line of business application. So the other thing we did was in the program, we created this as a scoped value. And if you might remember, or if you saw the last show, at the very end, kind of the last 20 minutes or so, we were going back and forth on should it be scope, should it be singular or singleton. And the thing that we ran into was that it did not fire off the event if it wasn't a singleton. And part of the reason for that is because of this here, in that on the page we didn't have interactive server. It was just regular old server-side rendered. So once we moved it out, once we changed it to that, we could keep it scoped at, or keep it as a scoped class instead of being a singleton class, which means it'd be up for the whole time that instance ran.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know if you had you look like you had a question.
No, I remember last time that we were trying to do that. Exactly what you said is, and there was a mystery. It was one of those things, last 10 minutes of the show.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And there was a mystery as to why we ended up dropping it in as a singleton, which wasn't going to work long term.
No, we knew
it
that.
Needed to be scoped. Yeah.
It was just a matter of figuring out, all right, how do we make it so that it behaves properly when it's scoped? So that was the fix we wound up doing there. It's interesting. It doesn't. I don't know why it's saying that. So if I run this, it should run. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Just trying to get Oh My Posh installed on here because I'm kind of grown accustomed to it and it didn't want to install my font. But that's another story for another day. All right, so it looks like we're running.
All right.
That's fine.
Is this the whole DevCert installation?
Yeah.
Which I guess I'm a little surprised was not created for you.
Right.
But
That
should not be too hard to add from the command line.
Oh, that's right.
I thought Visual Studio, like let's say you were a Visual Studio developer and the way you got into .NET was through installing Visual Studio. I thought that it did this part for you, but let's just go ahead and do it now. So I think it's .NET. I never remember the command, which is why the help is so good.
DevCerts.
DevCerts, right.
Do we need help on that too?
Probably.
It's fine.
.NET DevCerts HTTPS. It's like putting together a puzzle, one piece at a time. And you may not have to do anything more there. That might be it. There might be. Oh, look at that. That's odd. You can see the certificate. That's, yeah. So there's a little icon. Yes. And that'll show us exactly what it's doing. And it's just, interesting.
That's I don't remember running into this before.
I hear you. Well, you can continue in the advanced button.
You
can basically, that's right. This might be it too. Now I'm trying to think of whether that's a group policy type setting that you can say don't let them through. But you didn't have this issue on a dev box.
No. All right. Let's do this. App settings.
Oh, no, hold on a second. This project is targeting a version of .NET that is not installed?
Not this one. This one.
Oh, okay. Different. Your old project. That's right. Your .NET 7. I gotcha.
So we're cool. We don't need to see that one anymore. All right.
That's true. We have the HTTP one.
And maybe that's what I inadvertently was using previously. I don't remember changing out of the default, so that's interesting. Build succeeded. Okay, that looks better. Cool. All right, let's not complain about the fonts and things, but then we do need some design help at some point. But basically, what's your mood? We could do this. I don't have breakpoint set. Well, we could set it there, and we probably should set one on here so we can see that the state change object is there, and we can kind of run through something with that because I'm not kind of completely clear why that's happening, right? So we've got one selected. We'll select another one. We jump into here, right? So this is our response of blue and the question name of color, and we'll F5 away from here, and we get the state has changed. And the state has changed is supposed to take the question state responses, of which there are 2, and add them to the responses object that's on the page. The weird thing is this. It already knows about it.
Okay.
And I don't know why. I mean, maybe because it's interactive server, because this object here shouldn't be getting updated anywhere else except here.
It's not bound somewhere. It's not getting data bound somewhere in your markup.
No. Okay. The only data bound is this, and this is actually going to go away to another system at some, or to another component at some point.
Right.
Well, that's not true. I guess there is data bound in the question component, but that's also not where we're not binding the response object.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's yeah. I was a little weird. So I mean, I suppose that we could, to really test it, we could take this and step over the invoke and see if it still knows.
So I actually have a thought about it. You named the handler state has changed. Do you think that you're colliding with what Blazor's built-in state has changed method, which I don't know if it's on a component? I just don't know.
Okay. We can try that.
And so what's happening is Blazor called state has changed.
Yeah.
But except that you think your breakpoint would hit too. So because you had a breakpoint in there. So
yes. Yeah, it didn't hit. So let's see. We could try that. So if I go here, let's pause this because it's interesting that state has changed is green. Yeah, you might be right.
Okay, it says it hides the state has changed member. Yeah, so a component does have a state has changed method, which in very early versions of Blazor, I remember that I used to see some of the experts of the time would call state has changed to kind of force something to happen, but I feel like the need to do that has gone down. So really what I guess might have happened is that you've maybe collided with it, but now we know it's a different name.
Yep.
And let's see what happens now. What surprises me though is how your breakpoint didn't fire for both times.
Right. Look at this here. And right now responses is zeros. Yeah. So maybe that's on a different thread, or that happen. Might that happen? Well, that's interesting.
It should still, even if it's on a different thread, I feel like this breakpoint still hits. You just synchronize on that thread. I mean, I say just, but I know Visual Studio does some very interesting, amazing things to synchronize threads when you hit a breakpoint on any one of them. Like you could write a multi-threaded app that launches 5 threads, and then maybe in one of the thread handlers you have a breakpoint in it and it works. And so anyways, this is kind of how you were expecting it to work, is the way you're seeing it now. Is that it only no?
Because it looks like it said it again. All right, let's do it. So let's try this again. So it's nothing in there, right? Responses is empty. We're going to go through, and I'm not going to step through it. I'm just, well, when we get here, right, that next line should now invoke what's over on here.
Right. And what do you have in responses at the moment? I guess we're about to find out.
It is 0.
Okay, fine.
But then so is that.
Okay.
Which I guess is not completely the case, right? They're probably it. No? Yep, that's fine. Okay. It's interesting. So that prompt where it had to go out and leave and then come back, right? It's going off and doing something else on a different thread that I can't see.
Well, okay, so you've got, what do you have checked right now? You have 1 checked?
Yep. And
okay,
so this matches up.
If you continue, then what do you expect to happen next? Let's see.
Well, that was it. That was the end of the... Oh, now, I see what you're saying. I didn't continue.
So now you've clicked blue. Or you changed it to red. Okay.
Well, yeah, it doesn't... Yeah. It's a new... Either way, it's a new item. But if I go here, responses have 2 of red and happy. And if we do F11, I get here, which right now it already knows about the 2 counts. We have.
Well, it knows about 2 counts, but what do you have on the left? What does it think? On the left side, what does it think response 2 is? Still thinks it's red.
Yep. And then
so
we get this.
I'm still wondering.
But it kind of wasn't consistent. First time we ran through it, it was they were both 0, and then we got this and it made them both 1. And then this time around, before we hit line 56 where it tries to set it, they were both 2.
Yeah, the both being 2, I just wondered if it's because you were switching from red to blue or something, and so the left side still hadn't been brought up to date, but I guess that wasn't it.
Yeah. So we're going to continue. I don't know that it's something we're going to solve here, but there's a bit of a things getting updated. Oh, so now we're back to here.
So you're going to end up in there again.
So that should be everything. So it's gone through the questions. Gone through the answers and set the. That's for the visualization. So all that to get us back here. We've got 2 things selected, and we've got our values stored in response state, which is what we want. Just bounce around to get there. And I wonder if, so on this part here, this one, I mean, we have to let, that's how we notify anybody who's listening that something has happened, right? So we've got to call the invoke.
Yeah. So right now, even though it's a little baffling in some, you're getting the result you want in the
Yeah.
end.
As
Okay.
far as by the time that page displays, I have everything I want.
Okay. And then, yeah. All right. So again, you have two components. Basically, each of these questions in your prompt is a separate component.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you already show how in that component when somebody clicks a button, you basically start this chain of events, or I shouldn't use that term because it's actually using events, but or
Yeah.
maybe it's not. It is using an event, right?
Right. So it's going to, yeah. So we could, I think we're still running. So we can go ahead and do this and submit. And that should, oh, I didn't. Oop. You may have gotten locked up somewhere. Hang on. All right, let's do this. That's fine. That's fine. Boom. Now we hit here. I don't expect this to work because we haven't wired everything up with all of the connections to the services and stuff. But basically, the important part here is that my responses gives us, you know, essentially the collection that we need.
Okay. Yep.
So I can take that. So the plan. So I think we're at a good part, right? We got to the part where our answers are collected. We can pause here because then what we're going to do is we want to, regardless of what's here, because that's kind of going off in a slightly different direction. We want to do two things. We want to be able to take the array of responses and generate a response, right? So we've got to basically pass that over to some other service, right? And I'm pretty sure if we do something like array, because I think if you have a collection that's an array and you say give me them as a string, they just become comma separated values. I'm pretty sure.
Well, we're gonna find out.
Yes.
We're gonna know in a moment.
Yeah. Let's do this real quick. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I remember doing this before. Yeah.
I suppose at this point we don't need that breakpoint, right?
Yeah, we could probably disable them. Boom. For that one. That one. Good point. And then submit. Boom. Boom.
So that may not
So it
have done
basically
what you
just gave
wanted.
us the class.
Yeah.
All right. I may not want to loop through I know this is a shortcut. I don't want to loop through the array and, you know, build a string out as a result of it, right?
I mean, so let's see. You have an array.
Yep.
Let's think about this. You have an array. Like I'm sure there's a lot of ways that people would do it, but I think let's look up. I want to say that there's something we can use in the string class. So,
Okay.
what if I don't know if you want to look it up there? What if we look up string.join maybe? I'm looking it up separately, so now I got to get back to your screen.
Concatenates the string representations of an array of objects using a specified separator. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Okay. So not this. Oop. There we go. So whatever our separator is, in this case, it's going to be a comma, and then our collection, which is our essentially our collection. It needs to be an array, though.
I think, I think you're fine.
Well, it could be a key value pair. We could just leave it as responses, which is a key value pair.
Well, what I don't know is that if the join method takes it, but you can, let's see.
Well, that is the join method.
And then, oh, there you go. An IEnumerable. Yes, it will take an IEnumerable of T. Okay. Do you have to provide it anything else? If you give it an IEnumerable of T, which you've done, oh, it's just going to iterate the collection. So I guess we'll see what happens. That could be that. You're right. The to array could be unnecessary.
Yep. Okay. Let's
or not. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. This is why we do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why we run the code. That's fine. That's fine. Boom. Oh.
Okay. So you did get. All right. Interesting.
Which is kind of.
It depends on if that's what you want.
I mean, no. We don't have to have the descriptor, right? I mean, it should know that blue's a color, happy's a feeling.
Okay. So what you want to submit to Dolly, like I'm just asking what you want to submit to Dolly, and you want happy, blue. Like that's kind of what you want?
Yeah.
You know what might be interesting is, oh gosh. Because even to array, what is to array going to get you? I don't know if to array, if you take a dictionary like you had, and you convert it to an array, just by using this simple method, what does it do? I wonder if we're in a place where, well, let's see.
It creates an IEnumerable out of T.
Oh, okay.
And that type in this case being a dictionary.
Right. So you might just have an array of, well, I don't know. Because what I was going to say is I wonder if you want to say, if you want to project it the way you want. Oh, well, that.
Right. That might do it because it's just the values. It's a collection containing the values in the dictionary T key value.
Okay. And a value collection, which, to be fair, I can't say I know what a value collection is, but that's okay. We're about to find out, I'm sure.
Yeah. Were you going to do some kind of a lambda-y thing?
I figured that maybe it would end up just using link to project it the way you want, but this might work for you too.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so that'll work. That'll definitely do what you want.
Nice.
Interesting. So the value collection, although it doesn't matter anymore.
It's okay.
You've turned it into a string.
Yep.
Now you've got something else. But now it turns out that values collection, according to this, is not a static copy and refers back to the values in the original. Therefore, changes continue to be reflected. Okay. So if you took responses.values, and let's say you took you did var something equals responses.values. Now you have a reference to responses.values, and what they're warning you is that if you rely on your new variable to stay the same, well, it might not. If somebody modifies the dictionary, it'll modify it in place. So, but you've changed it into a string. You're out. Whatever somebody does to responses.values after that doesn't concern you.
Yep. It's all smoke and mirrors at that point.
No, that was cool. That was fun to kind of work through.
Okay. So now we've got our string collection. What the plan is to take that collection of string and then pass that into an OpenAI model so that it can basically generate the prompt. And to just looking at what we got left time wise and kind of where we are, my thought is we could go over to Azure, create the service side of what we need because we don't have that created yet, and be able to, in the playground area there, create a just test it out, right? Make sure that it works.
Okay. Is this going to the Dolly playground in Azure OpenAI Studio?
Actually,
Or if you have another
it's
place you're going, that's fine.
we are going to, yeah. Why don't we go there? Oh well, I'm not signed in. Okay. Mm, mm. Okay, so I'm in Azure AI Studio, and this is it's preview still, but this is what we're think about developers and going out and creating AI projects. This is a place where we typically might go and do it from Azure. Now you can get there from the Azure portal, and then when you create an OpenAI resource, we probably should show that too. But when you go and create an OpenAI resource, then what happens is that you end up going into Azure OpenAI Studio, and then from there it can take you into what we were just looking at there, which is AI Studio. I know that's a lot. So the reason being is AI Studio gives you a collection of all of your AI projects that you might be working on, and then you can have specific projects related to, in this case, our Hello Dolly one. If we've got another application, we can have a separate project for that, and each project has their own models and playgrounds and things that we would use to build out our application with. We'll see it as we go through it, but let me just do it from this way right now. Let's do this. Just pop that there. Let's do East US 2. This one's going to be yep, that's fine. Okay, next.
So what you're saying is that you're creating the services you need, and today we're going to be able to test them out right in Azure OpenAI Studio. But then the next time we meet up, we'll be using these services you're creating, but from Blazor, from C#.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But they have to be set up anyway. So, like you said, we wouldn't be able to do both today.
Right. So let's kind of take what the response gave us. So that was fast. So we got this, and maybe walk through some of the things that we're doing here. No. There we go. Do that. Cool. That made that disappear. So this is what we're going to be looking at here is Azure OpenAI Studio, which is specifically related to working with the OpenAI models that you have in your Azure environment, right? So if I click this, it would basically move this whole environment to AI Studio so that we have our own project inside of there that we can start building out from. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because I think that's the better way to show this. Yep, we're going to create it. And it's always fun when you do these live and you're waiting for services to get built.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. So you can, this is a familiar interface if you've done things inside of OpenAI Studio. That interface is getting carried over here into AI Studio. And we have our playground. Playground is the important part where we can actually start to test out the chat component. Now, I can't really test anything right now because no deployment exists. So what that means is I don't have a model, large language model, that I can point to be able to get to interact with, essentially. So I have to explore. Yep. And our model catalog. And I know I want a GPT model. And what I'm looking for is, based off of previous experiences, I want this instruct model because I don't need to have a chat conversation here. It's kind of what we used to call like a single round when we were building bots. I'm going to pass some information to the bot, and the bot's going to give me a response, and then we're done. So it's not like I have to retain history or I need to kind of set up some kind of a conversation back and forth. It's really just, here's some information that I want you to do this to generate a prompt from. Just send that back to me. So instruct is typically how you would do that. It's called a completion model. So we're going to do that. And all I'm going to do is just really simply not going to do anything else other than deploy. It's interesting they rolled them all up. Yep. Okay. So this is, let's see. For GPT-3.5 model. So basically we're looking at the documentation because that's where we really need to focus on. It tells us where everything is deployed and running. So right now it is deployed in East US. If I am in East US 2, we have turbo and we have 16K turbo. And that's kind of it. Okay. So let's try. I'm pretty sure didn't take long to create, but what we can do is we can try this. Let's go back to our catalog. Let's do GPT again. And feel free to throw out questions as we go through this, because I'm sure they are there. Try that one. That's going to be, if I deploy, it's actually kind of okay with that one. Okay, so that one's in East US 2, which is where we are. And we can leave, that's fine, we can leave that like that. I've got a key I'm not going to worry about right now. We're going to go back to the playground and we're going to change our mode. We're going to change it from completions, or from chat to completions.
Okay.
Because the interface is different, right? It doesn't matter. That chat interface doesn't help us or give us anything because I'm going to give it some text and it's going to give me a response and we're done.
Okay. So yeah, we saw information in there that we're going to take back to the app next time. Like for instance, the keys in order to call this service.
Yep. Yeah, which we kind of sidestepped, but that's fine.
Now, is this just taking its time trying to render this page, or?
I don't think so. I think it's really saying so in my previous workings in doing this, the instruct model was the only one that I was able to get into the completion space. So I was trying to see, okay, you say this will work, let's try this, because it did say chat completions inside of here. So let's see. What I want to do is we need to stand up another instance of we need to go back to here, unfortunately, because once you create these, you can't change the location where they are. So let's go back to home, create.
When you say location, do you mean geographically or just what you'd set up?
Geographically. So everything that happens in Azure, unless it's a global service, resides in a physical region, and that's what we were essentially doing here. So we'll save this as East US because that will work.
So I know we're waiting for it to start. When you were in the network section, is that where you could limit what could reach it? Okay.
Yeah, and that is something we will look at. So right now, by default, happens with a lot of services, it's publicly available.
Okay.
What you want to do is protect yourself, and the plan for that is to do a session where we look at API management.
Okay.
Because that's a great thing to have when you have your API landscape there, to be able to include that inside of as part of your infrastructure. So we'll do both of those. We'll stand up API management and then be able to create the put the endpoint behind a private network, essentially. So what I'm doing here is it wants me to. That's the resource. Okay. Can you shift screens from me? Because I'm going to give it I've got to get a key.
No problem. So Rich has to go get the key. So now we've got this awesome, funky looking view, which I'll try to look. We'll switch to these bubbles, and then we'll put our logo up in the corner. Look at all that. So yeah, he's got to put in some sensitive information. We've done this on the show before, and it's unfortunate, right? There's been a few times where when I've made a video instead of it being a live stream, where I just go ahead and, now you got to be careful. You got to remember to do it. Is I go ahead and just make the resource, just show it to everybody, so that way they say, okay, at least I know how to go to the dashboard and how to get a key and how to get a secret and all that. And then I have to remember, which I've been pretty good about, I have to remember when I'm done making the video to go destroy that resource.
Exactly.
So,
and what I was hopeful for was that it would basically create the connection for me.
Yeah. Are we good to go back?
I think so. Give me 1 second to make sure.
Yep, I'll wait. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I couldn't tell. I can't always tell from in our studio here, in the virtual studio. It's like, okay, well, I see the screen changed, but it's this big. So,
okay, we should be fine now. Yeah, let's go ahead and go back.
Okay.
So all I did was that window that popped up basically gave me said what kind of what service in Azure are you trying to connect to? In this case, it was OpenAI, and I gave it the endpoint and the key so that it could do its communication, and then I named it. So what we have here is essentially, we're doing this inside of an AI project, and then because it sits in here, we can then use it for other things that we might build out as part of this project. We could also make the connections be across the entire AI Studio instance, or what's called an AI hub. And then any project that comes in can then use those connections. So it's a way of starting to pull these services together into something that, from in my mind, becomes almost like working inside of Azure DevOps, right? The AI hub becomes that organization, and I've got projects underneath it for each of the different work that we're doing. Some things get shared across projects, and some things just reside inside of that project. So that's kind of how I'm starting to piece this together as we tell the story to customers. So.
Okay.
So we can try this again. Oh, wait a minute. We're in a different project. We want to in East US. What I want to do is, because we have a different connection, I want to change the model up. Let's see. We got that. That's fine. AI Studio. And in our playground. So here's where some of the things are a little bit new, and I'm just trying to get the feeling and handle around this. So we want to take, we want to use a different connection, essentially a different AI Studio, or I'm sorry, OpenAI component. And I don't see a way to make that. Right, there's nothing here that lets us switch that. Deployments. I'm going to create a deployment. Real-time endpoint, that's fine. Off of GPT Turbo Instruct.
Okay.
This project doesn't have access to. It must be because it's the default OpenAI project. Because if we go back and look here, it's saying this is default. Yeah, and there's really no settings to change that. Interesting.
Oh, I see. You want to, what you want to use is the Azure OpenAI connection there, the second one, right? That's the one you're wanting to use.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because there's no, that's interesting.
Okay. And so is it that when you're in Studio?
When you're in AI Studio, one gets created for us, right? Because we came from here, from Hello Dolly, and then go into the OpenAI Studio. And then we said, well, go ahead and let's explore AI Studio. So it created our hub and our project and all that. And what I'm trying to do is, I've already got a hub and I've already got a project. I just want to bring that connection into here because that's the one I want to use. And I don't see an easy way to do that. So
you added the connection. I think we saw you do that.
Yep. So even though the connection exists and it could be available for other things in my project,
right.
So if I did something like prompt flow and wanted to use that OpenAI inside of that, it would probably be part of that dropdown. The thing is that I'm doing a default. I'm doing something where I don't have an option to choose. It's just using the default.
Huh. Okay.
So what we're going to do here instead is I'm going to go back to that one that I just created, and I'm just going to go ahead and inside of AI Studio for now, we're going to build it here. So here's instruct, auto update the default deployment name is GPT 5. Instruct. Okay. Not going to worry about the optional stuff for now. It's created successfully, beautiful. But what that gives me is, it should, if I go to completions, there we go. There's my deployment.
That's a deployment right there. That's what you just called it. Yeah.
Yes. So in here, we basically start typing what it is that we're wanting wanting the large language model or the AI to provide back. So we could give it, if we look at some examples of some things here, we could say something like generate product name ideas, right? So give it some text around what it is that you want it to generate. Have some initial, all of this is kind of qualifying what it is that it's going to be doing. You can give some examples. So this is, I think they call this, this is an example of what you want them to build. And then down here is the space where it says, okay, in here, drop in the product names because this is what we want you to generate. And we can hit. Within the last 5 minutes, gotta wait.
Did you click generate there?
I did, but do you see the message?
Yes, deployment not found.
Yeah, because we just deployed it. So
okay.
It might take a few minutes for it to get there. Yeah. And of course, we're winding down. But while we're waiting, realize that you've got essentially all of these settings here. So I think this really is a playground. This is a chance for, as a developer, to go in and just start seeing, well, what works? And if it's not quite close enough, how can I refine it? Or if it's a little too creative with its answer, how can I refine it to make it more deterministic, as we say? So there are settings in here. So something like temperature, which talks about the randomness of the responses, or the randomness of the words that it'll throw in there. So the higher the temperature, the more you're stirring the pot, and you're giving the ability to generate randomness and creativity. And if we don't want that much randomness and creativity, we can bring it down to something a little more manageable, maybe even 0 or 0.1, and then that temperature value also has a related value called top P, or top probabilities. So they control the randomness. So as you start playing around with this, don't move both at the same time. You want to adjust one and see how that impacts it, and then look at adjusting the other. So just, it's just like any kind of A/B testing. You want to limit the number of variables that you're actually testing against. And then there's some additional pieces in here related to the maximum token length. So how many tokens am I sending? Not only am I sending, but also it has to include the amount that you would receive from the response. So it's kind of an all-up value. So it's what you're providing in. In this case, it looks like we're providing about 100 tokens. Tokens are essentially about a word a piece. And then, so that leaves us roughly 900 tokens to get back as a response.
Okay.
We could do generate. We try it again, and no.
Huh.
I want to get one.
Yeah. And I guess there wasn't a way for you to see the status of the deployment.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Try it one more time here. Let's do this. Let's crank that back down. Fine. Yeah. I don't know. It's been 3 minutes since we started looking at it, so it might be close to get one in. But anyway, the thought is, hey, let's. That's interesting. What screen was up there?
What do you mean? What screen was up there?
What was I sharing? Was it always the?
It's been this presenting Azure AI Studio preview.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
It looked
like we were following along with you, so I didn't say anything because it looked like you were clicking, and then it was saying that the deployment, like it just says it again.
Yeah.
The deployment hasn't completed. So.
Yeah. I don't think there's really. I mean, if we. There's not much more going back to the code. We've got a couple minutes left anyway. Does it kind of make sense where we're heading and how we kind of got here?
So there's interesting bits that like I don't quite have my head wrapped around yet. Like you were choosing, you chose GPT 3.5 Turbo Instruct, there was a whole list of things to choose. I admit I'm not 100% sure what these are. So these are models, okay?
Yep.
And when most people are thinking of models right now, they're thinking of the large language models where you ask these systems a question, and then to our perception, it looks like it's answering it. But I believe that part of what's happening under the covers, maybe I don't have this exactly right, is that it's basically predicting. It's really, instead of like intelligently answering, it's really kind of predicting what the answer is, both based on the questions and what you're saying in the questions and the tokens that it finds. It's like, well, probably the first word of the answer is what, and then the second part of the answer is you are looking for, and so you get this nice conversational
Yeah.
answer,
Hmm.
but it's all coming from prediction and probability, from what I understand, which is so interesting
Exactly.
because it just has to show you how large the model is. I imagine that if models are very small, like something that our brains can wrap our heads around, um, then I might ask it, can you tell me how to add 2 plus 2? And it might just simply say 4.
Right.
But if the language is this large conversational language model, then it has the ability to make that answer more conversational and say, yes, I can do that for you. The answer is 4, or something that's the thing that's been so remarkable, is that feeling that you are talking with something instead of just looking up an answer.
Right. Right. It's very different from what we did with search. Um,
Yes. And so the instruct, you are choosing for a reason over the one at the top, just chat GPT. I'm sorry, GPT 3.5 Turbo.
yep. Yeah. So the difference is that because we're not having a conversation, and we want it to do that completion um, function, only certain models support that capability.
Okay.
Um, and one of the ones that, based on some previous trial and error, uh, work well is this Turbo Instruct as a completion model. Um, and you can see here it's only located in a couple of locations. There's also information here around the max tokens and kind of when that last training data was put into play. So all of this models page, when you're using the Azure OpenAI service, this is where you can go and find out, okay, what's in here, which ones do I want to use. There's different models around embedding. So if you're doing things that do some kind of a vector-based search, and you can embed that into the prompt that you wind up sending forward to have the I'm going to mess this part up. The text embedding is used around the vector um, searching. So vector searching is a little different than keyword searching in that, if you're looking at a document saying, hey, I'm looking for medical student, and I type that in, and I'll get just like you would in Bing, you would get results back and you would have the highlighted word. But what if I wanted to say something about the medical student, like medical student graduation dates or medical student rotation schedule? Now I've got multiple words, and I could certainly search for those individual words, but I want to see them when they're together because they're all kind of related. And what a vector index does is essentially gives you, hard for us to imagine beyond a 3-point model like a XYZ coordinate, but essentially it's multi coordinates where that collection of words would sit together in a multi-dimensional space, and then results would have similar vector numbers that match that collection of words together, would have similar vector numbers. So what you're doing is you're searching for these words together, and because they have some kind of related meaning that's important to you. So that's what the embedding helps us drive towards, is to be able to figure out how those vector pieces work. So if you take that generative AI course, you will go into all of these things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
be
certainly.
able to see what's going on there.
And I think it'll be nice to dive into that stuff here too.
Yeah,
So the next step is, and again, I don't know if you want to give it one last shot before you
I
have to
am.
go, because it would be pretty nice to at least see. Okay, so here we are. We did have to just wait, And
Yep.
let's kind of go over what we're doing here. Like if we think about the long-term thing is you want to give a couple examples. Is this really the right way to think of it? You want to give a couple examples or seed words like your mood and the color, and except that we're going to want to give this to Dolly.
Yep.
But you just in some sense you're just testing. You're saying, "Hey, let me make sure my deployment works. Let's use this thing that's built in, generate product name ideas." So is this a prompt up at the top? Generate
Yep.
product name. Okay, so this is really getting submitted, is saying generate product name ideas for a product yet to be launched. And here are the seed values. And here are even some examples so that you can
Yep.
see the kind of form I'm looking for is that sort of very common in the world nowadays, that sort of let's mush some words together and get a new product, right?
Yep.
I really think the DNS system has pushed us down this path because I got to find something I can register. And the
Hmm.
example products, Vital Tracker, Health Flux, and now it's coming out with Vital Flow and Well Mate and Health Snap and Vital Ease and Well Watch and Vital Boost and all those things. So, okay,
Yep.
cool. Awesome.
And even things like Comcat Care, which isn't, just related words to that, right?
Yeah. And so the next step, and could you even do it here in this? I know we got to run, but could you even do it here in this playground? Is switch to the Dolly preview and essentially say, well, this is what my program that we're working on in Blazor is kind of going to do anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we're going to do here, though, is we're going to generate a text prompt.
Okay. So this is a very interesting story now. Like I could see the flow happening. Is first we want to come to this completion playground, not really the playground, but this completion service or and say I need a text prompt now that I'm going to give to Dolly that I just gave you a few words.
Yep.
So that's really interesting. Okay.
So this kind of sets the stage, right? What
Yeah.
is it I want you to do? And
Right.
so we're going to end the prompt. Should be
Okay. Prompt should be based
right.
on these descriptors of an image. Okay.
And we could, so in this case, we know we want it to be happy. We know we want it to be red. Let's throw some other ones in there. Let's make it a drawing.
Right.
Let's make it in winter.
Okay.
And let's, so those, we're basically just giving descriptors to what
Yeah.
we want it to do. So
Right.
with that,
here's where the prompt engineering comes in, right? It's going to be interesting
Exactly.
to get this prompt right so that somebody uses your software, they pick the descriptors, you're going to get a good text prompt. Then we're going to go off to Dolly. So there's a lot to do, which is cool.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that's why it's a really good one to kind of walk through. So we hit generate. So this is saying create an image of a joyful snowman with a bright red scarf and hat, happily drawing a winter scene with a red crayon. So that's what it came up with.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to try and tweak it or anything like that, but we can take this and then go here and say this.
I appreciate that it's okay. So there's an API deployment for this.
Yeah, I did not deploy a Dolly model.
All right. Well, then
where we're going.
That's where we'll start. But it's nice. We got to finish off. I know we had to fight in here a little bit, but so we wrote some code. We now know that we can have components with that ask questions that are essentially going to get you a series of descriptors. You've got 2 in there now, but you could just keep adding.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to call into this Azure OpenAI service deployments that you've built. Right now we're in the playground so that we don't have to build any software, but that's not where we want to get to. And we know we can do the completion. Now it's going to be, okay, now I need a Dolly deployment, a Dolly model deployment. Is that right? And then we'll write to that. So it's kind of nice that we can see this all working in here, and then we're going to get it integrated in code. So
Yeah.
pretty nice. Okay. All right. You know what? I think now we've talked about this project in the past, and now it's like really feels like, okay, now I see where it's going.
Yeah, hang on one sec, because it looks like there is an existing.
If you use the Dolly 2,
Yeah,
or is
which
that
is
what you
fine.
did? You switched that deployment? Yeah, okay. So this prompt, the Blazor, our app will eventually, that's cool. Our app will eventually be able to take the descriptors, use the completion service to create the real, I don't want to say the real prompt, but the prompt that we're going to pass to Dolly. And then that's what you want to come back in the software. Like users going to see the snowman.
Yep, and you can see it's non-deterministic what it's doing, right? So the one, you've got this here with a crayon.
Yep.
And then you actually have what looks like a hand of somebody
Yep.
actually drawing this.
They're drawing the snowman. Yeah.
Yeah. So so yeah, so this will be fun images that come back. Now we can, other things we can talk about, there are content services to make sure that the image that comes back is, safe for work and those kind of things, right? So you want to put those filters over top of what happens, or what gets generated essentially. So we'll be doing some of that as well. And that's part of the reason why we're using it by just like selecting answers to questions as opposed to somebody generating the text themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So we can kind of control what gets displayed back.
Sure. Right. And I mean it's kind of nice we're seeing the services work together too. So not something I thought of is that, I guess, like you said, one purpose of generating the prompt for them is to limit, I don't even really want to say just like bad or malicious actors, but certainly it's something you have to be on the lookout for.
Yeah.
With AI, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
been in the news in the last couple of weeks again. So
yeah, and that's so especially since it's something that we're going to be having, probably out and displayed for people to kind of check out. So
okay. So this is this, I don't know if you can say that you were doing this for a project that might actually be out in the public or not. I didn't know. Okay.
It's definitely one that we're going to be demoing for sure, because
that's cool.
It
okay.
covers across many different of the AI capabilities, as you said. So yeah.
Cool. Well, awesome. Okay, I'm glad that deployment got through and that we got to see the tail end of it there. So those of you watching, hey, if you've been watching, whether you've been watching on Twitter, watching on LinkedIn, happens to be my personal LinkedIn, or if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, wow, that was a bunch of places there. Then thank you for joining us. And if you are watching, if you are watching on YouTube or Twitch, then on YouTube, we do have in the description, we do have the link to the LinkedIn site. And I believe that it's actually also a banner at the bottom of the screen. And the reason why we're saying this is that if we get 150 followers on LinkedIn, we can stream there as well, using the Dev Talk Show branding. Right now, I'm just using my LinkedIn. So in any case, that's it. I don't know if you can get the music going and send us out.
Yep. All right. We'll get it going. Okay. Thanks, guys.
See you, everybody. Thanks for joining.